morning. Good morning. Welcome, everybody, to the Saturday Morning Mastermind. I'm your host, Samantha Studebaker-Carl, broadcasting to you from beautiful Indianapolis, Indiana. And I'm here with my good friends, Lori and Catherine, Karen, Angel, and Dan. And today we're going to continue talking about the book Love, Life, God by Jarrad Hewett. We'll be talking about chapter 7. And today's topic is going to be on how to recognize and stop creating your own personal hell. So that'll be an interesting topic. But before we get going, I want to give everyone an opportunity to introduce themselves. And for those of you who are watching, go ahead and give us a comment, like our video. And if you'd like to participate with us and you're not already in our Facebook group, then go to mindsetmasterycollective.com where you can find a link to get into our Facebook group. So, all right, everybody, go ahead and jump out and introduce yourselves.
This is Lori in the background here in Denver, awaiting a huge snowstorm.
This is Angel Studebaker down here in Beaufort, South Carolina, and it actually is supposed to be 77 today. I'm pretty excited.
This is Catherine Clement. Good to be here.
I'm Karen Lohoff. I'm in Mesa, Arizona. I've been in a new place now for 9 days and without TV. They came and worked on Cox for several hours yesterday, and apparently when people leave here, they take their part of it or Cox monitors, and if nobody's watching TV for a while, they get rid of that. So I have no idea how warm it is. We have had some rain, and I don't know who our president is. Anybody know? Anybody help me?
Dan Sissick in swampy Las Vegas right now. We've had rain the last couple days. Really rained a lot yesterday. The last 2 days it's rained. Yesterday was a little harder, but we had hail up in Henderson, which is one of our cities that's kind of connected sort of to Las Vegas. And then in another area I was in the southwestern part of town, we had hail over there yesterday. So yeah, it's been wet and we need it. So I'm dealing with it because I don't like the rain.
Yeah, swampy and Las Vegas. 2 words I never thought I'd hear together, Dan. I thought Las Vegas was always desert, but I have never been there, so I really wouldn't know. I just assumed, you know how we kind of stereotype different parts of the country. We see stuff in movies and we assume we know everything about it, right? But
Well, take desert, what the open desert landscape, and if you have a lot of rain and a lot of water going on getting into that desert stuff, and if you get enough of it, after a while, it kind of gets cloudy, swampy, so that's kind of that idea of when we were younger and Las Vegas was a lot smaller, that was more prevalent in a lot of areas and stuff like that. Luckily I haven't heard of any real major flooding, so that's a good thing.
Are we the new weather broadcast system?
what are you talking about, Lori? New weather broadcast?
Or said, are we the new broadcast system?
Yeah, we all get on here and say what temperature it is in our part of the country, and then everybody knows. Then,
Yeah, and we're probably more accurate.
right. Oh goodness. It's funny though. I was just talking about my perception of Las Vegas based on what I've seen in the movies or whatever, and that kind of takes us into our topic today. Actually, when we start talking about perception. And, I made the title of our topic to be, how to recognize when you're creating your own, stop creating your own personal hell. But I wanted to say, I wanted to read some of the beginning of this chapter so we can kind of get on that topic a little bit, because it's all about perception. So, okay, so they're talking about creation and the perception of polarity. And it says, you can't create abundance from the vibration of lack. However, lack and abundance are two sides of the same coin. In your terms, you would call them polarities, but we'd like to be quick to point out there are no polarities. Polarities are a creation of your own mind. At this point, know that if you perceive polarity, you will experience it as reality. That does not mean it is truly present. You could put red lenses over your eyes and perceive everything as you see, or perceive everything you see as red. But does that make the world red? It is not your perception that creates reality. It's you. Don't confuse the two. Yes, you perceive redness in the example, but you're also able to remove the lenses and see what is actually there. In other words, you saw red because your perception told you there was red. You trusted your perception. You knew it to be right. You knew that you were seeing red. Why you were seeing red was of no consequence. Whether you consciously knew the lenses were there or not, you saw red, and thus everything was red. Were you to remove the lenses, your perception would change. The surface appearance does not change, yet it looks different. The important thing is to always know you are always free to remove whatever lenses you may be wearing. So we're talking about this idea of perception, and I think that we've all heard of the kind of the saying of seeing the world through rose-colored glasses, and of course in that instance it's saying that you have this idea in your head that everything's better than what it really is. But a lot of times I think what we tend to do is we actually are wearing colored glasses that are giving us the impression that things are worse than what they are. And, I wanted to kind of give a little bit of a, I guess, just kind of make you think about this. Is like at any moment, we are choosing to see through a myriad of colored glasses. And at any point, you can choose to take off the glasses and perceive things in a different way. I wanted everybody to just kind of share an example of a time where you recognize that you were looking at something and causing yourself your own discomfort, and then what you did to change that perception. And I'll kind of start just as an example. If we can talk about work is a good example, because a lot of people are frustrated with work, or they're dissatisfied with their job, or things like that. And at one point in time, when I was a pet groomer, I was really frustrated with that job. I was tired of it. I was wore out. I was just disappointed in my customers, all kinds of different things. And I realized at one point that it was because of what I was focused on, or these, the glasses I had over my eyes, that I was focused on all of these things I didn't like about my job. And when I turned around and started looking at things I did like about it, then all of a sudden the job sound, it was different. It felt different. And so, when we do this to ourselves in all kinds of different ways, whether it's in relationships, or whether it's in our daily interactions with other people, or whether it is with our job, or any number of things. So can you guys think of a situation in your life where you were saying something to yourself about a situation, and then you recognize that, oh, I'm just doing this to myself and I can change it? I just changed the color of glasses, if you will, that I'm looking through.
I know there's a couple times where I'll get thinking about something, whether it be what Tyler did or something, or how he did it, or how he said it, and I'll get into this mindset of, oh no, he's mad. oh no, he's mad at me. What did I do or something? And then, and then I'll get mad. Like, why does he have any reason to be mad at me? And then I'll get stuck in this loop of thinking about this. And then, and then finally I'll confront him and be like, what the frick, And he's like, wait a second. What? I wasn't mad at all. I was just frustrated about this, and it came out a little bit. And I'm like, oh, that makes a lot more sense than what I was thinking, And I just have this horrible thing of thinking the worst case scenario, like immediately for some reason. And then generally when, I sit down and I talk to him, I'm talking, buddy. I'll sit down and I'll be like, hey, I'll say something to him and he'd be like, oh no, that's not how it is. And he'll explain what he meant. It's just how he comes off a lot of the times. And I don't realize that. And I just immediately go on the defense. And I'm working on it. So I think that pertains. I feel like, yeah, that's it. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Well, I can name probably quite a few in my life and stuff like that, but the one that was most recent where I perceived something a little more than what I probably should have. Um, I got a text this week from one of our leaders at my church. She's like in charge of all the greeters and ushers and stuff, and I'm an usher. And she texted me and said, do you mind if we, have a chat after service this Sunday? I want to talk to you about a couple things. So my brain automatically went, okay, what did I do wrong? What's going on? What's what? So instead of waiting until it's just saying yes, wait until Sunday and finding out, okay, this is this and this is that. Um, I pulled over. I had a brief moment I could stop in between Ubering, and I quickly called her and said, I got a couple minutes I could talk right now. And she goes, well, I really can't really talk right now because I'm at work, and I didn't put that into play either, that she was probably calling me from work, because she works for the church and stuff and things like that. And I said, "Oh, okay, that's okay." And then I said, "So did I do something wrong?" What? And she goes, "No, I just want to thank you, and then I want to talk to you about the future of, I'm assuming the church, because of some of the things we've gone through over the last couple of years, that have come in light to things that have happened in the past with past um, administrations that we had." So it automatically made me feel better. But at the same point, my brain was already going to, okay, what did I do wrong? What did, my perception was, even though I knew I probably hadn't done anything wrong, I went there to that, to that place I tend to always go when I'm not sure of what something happens or where it's coming from. But I know where I get it from. It's from when I was a child and with my real mom and stepdad. Whenever something would happen, I would always jump to the conclusion, what did I do wrong? And that's something I just do inadvertently. It's just instinct in me. It's so built into me because of how, when I was little, that type of response got so drilled into me that I automatically go there almost no matter what the situation is. So that's one incident just within this last week that I did. My glasses definitely changed quickly, to going from where I was doing fine, out making my money, doing my stuff, working, to, oh no, what's wrong? What's gonna happen? That type of thing.
Sorry, hit the wrong button there. Muted my video instead of unmuting my microphone. I had another thought of another time where I was kind of had the wrong color glasses on, if you will. I had this manager at when I worked in retail not too long ago, and she just came in they added her as a new manager, and she just came in there and just was very aggressive with telling everybody what to do and how to do it. And I immediately had this kind of idea in my head that she was, she would tell me to do something, and I'm a very independent worker, and so I would immediately take it personally, and I was like, gosh, she thinks I'm not doing it right or whatever, and it would make me angry that she kept telling me what to do. And I'm like, I know what to do. I don't need you to tell me what to do. And that was kind of my thought process, kind of like what you were saying, Dan. I immediately jumped to this conclusion that because she was telling me what to do, that that she was calling me out in some way, like I wasn't doing it right in the first place. And I started hearing a lot of other people that were having the same problem with this particular manager, as they were getting frustrated with her, and they were like, angry at her. And then one day I was, my son came over, and I was telling him something that I thought was really important about the job, because he works for us. And I realized that I wasn't calling him out for doing it wrong. I was just telling him what I felt like he needed to know for my own comfort, of telling him to make sure I knew that he knew, And when I did that, it made me think about the manager at my work, and the fact that her personality was such that she found it necessary to tell everybody what to do, so that I'm guessing because it made her feel like she told them, and that she knew that if she told them that it should get done. And or it was just her personality and her management style of just telling people what to do frequently versus just letting them do whatever. And when I kind of changed that thought process and recognized that, I realized that what she was doing didn't have anything to do with me, and that there wasn't any reason for me to be upset, because it was all, this is all her way of just managing. And so it changed how I felt about that particular manager. And I think that, a lot of times this is the thing that we do to ourselves, is we get these ideas in our head of what we think somebody else is trying to do or trying to be or whatever, and we take it personally, and then we make ourselves miserable over it when we really don't need to.
Well, I'll jump back out again, and I think also, like in the book, it talks about the polarities and stuff and things like that, and it also talks in kind of conjunction. It says we never left it, but since we have given you the answer before examining the question, let's look at what you call polarity and how this idea might work in this context. Within the energy of abundance, there is the choice for lack. And within I want it is the choice I don't want it. And as you move forward in releasing your stories, you may find that you're experiencing some of the past. Your past patterns may emerge. This is simply what you would call the polarity that exists within the vibration of letting go of your stories, and is the vibration of not letting go. In order to neutralize the polarities in your perception, move into total choice, we ask that you move into total love, total trust, total harmony. While harmony is living without polarities, it is living in an eternal choice. And I think that's part of some of the problems of getting out of um, being able to see past that, to be able to stay in that love thought or process, and being able to kind of, to me, the best way I would say it is be in that neutral zone or whatever. But I also look at it because when we're in situations, I'm going to go back and we've talked about this before, where in an accident, you see a bad accident, and you have, the different perceptions from different people because of where they're at or how they saw it or what angle they saw it at, and you're all looking at the same. You may have all witnessed the same thing, but out of that you'll get several different um, synopsises of what happened and what created it, and that's also too where the you know polarities come in, I think, and kind of that colored glasses comes in, and and we tend to all kind of, you know, then when we're talking about it, it's like, no, this is what happened. No, no, this is what happened. And then we go back in our own mind and start looking at it and trying to look at it from the other perspective. And sometimes we can get to that other side, and sometimes we can't. And I think that's part of, um, and I know most people won't like this term, but part of the, I am going to say, limitations, I guess, we surround ourselves with to help us feel better, I guess. Um, that's just kind of what I'm getting out of what it's saying here.
Yeah, I've definitely had a million examples of having the wrong colored glasses on. And thankfully, at some point, I don't know where it was, I realized how much distress I was causing myself and that I was causing sort of a personal hell by thinking those thoughts. And, when I read books like Byron Katie, The Work, and The Five Love Languages, those books, those two books, first of all, The Five Love Languages, up until I read that book, like, I don't know, it just never occurred to me that people receive and express love in completely different ways. It, I don't know why it never occurred to me, but that book really opened my mind to how differently people process things and how differently we all are. Because I tend to just think that, you know, deep inside we're all really alike, but we're really not. Like, totally different things motivate us, totally different things scare us, totally different, we have different likes and dislikes in food and lifestyles and all kinds of things. And I just never realized that that extended to giving and receiving love as well. And so that book really made a huge impact on which glasses I put on now. And um, it's still challenging sometimes to not see somebody else's choice as right or wrong, um, especially around certain subjects and things. But, going back to the accident, not only do people see that accident differently, but almost everybody has the same reaction to an accident, which is, oh, how horrible. When in reality, that accident could lead to, and even a disability, a long-standing disability that could eventually, because it takes a while to find the gifts in disability, but that would eventually open that person up to a life and a whole different way of thinking or whatever that they never would have found had it not been for the disability caused by the accident. So I'm not saying that we should necessarily applaud when we see one, but I'm just saying don't necessarily, it's not necessarily a horrible thing either. Like, everything happens for a reason. And it's hard for me to say this because I've had a really horrible couple of weeks with pain and nights up all night long, just standing in the middle of the room crying. because I can't even lay down. And, you know, of course, my brain goes at that a million different directions, and trying to find the good in that. And there is good, because it drives me really deep. And even though I'm a pretty deep person, it takes me even deeper, and it makes me, even when there is no hope, it makes me hold out for even a glimpse of hope. And then once I get that glimpse of hope, then that hope opens up wide again, which allows for more possibilities. But it shows me how easily my mind is taken down a very deep and dark hole into the depths of hell, I can assure you. And yet it also shows me that I can pull myself back from that. So even that horribleness, it still serves in such a huge way, you know. So our glasses that we wear, which takes me back to Katie Byron's work, or Byron Katie's work, I always get that backwards. That really what we choose to focus on can create our heaven or our hell.
Oh, I think something that even just what you were just saying and stuff is, I think you have a nice advantage to a lot of us, and I think some of us being a part of this group are probably learning some of that. Um, that sometimes when we, for lack of a better way of saying, allow ourselves to go to those depths and that feeling and that pain and that hurt, that's also what turns around and drives us to realize that no, you know, um, I can pull myself out of this. I can, work through this. And in the releasing and letting go, I think of that for that moment when we realize that that temporary hold that has over us, that's where we can start that journey back up, back to where we can pull out of it. Not everybody has that ability to do that, and therefore they stay in that hole or in that thing, or they don't want to get out of it. Maybe in some cases, and I think that's something that um, I think this chapter is alluding to. Is part of that choice and part of that desire, is if you can learn to accept that and know that that choice, that while you're going through it, you can work on making that choice to change that around and let go of it. And it doesn't have to be what totally defines you, and you can start working your way back up and out.
You muted, Karen.
Like you're going to cut my head off? You really got me there when you said that sometimes we don't even want to get out of that kind of thing. I think probably at least 5 years while I spent time in Utah, in southern Utah, around St. George, which is really, really beautiful. It's by Bryce and Zion Canyons. And I sometimes go back and I look at my journals and I can see where people have commented to me that I need to get over this, or I need to get over that. And I realized that I was really choking on on my thoughts and how I set, how I perceived how my life was at the time. And I didn't think I could get out of it, but I have gotten out of it, and uh, life is so much better when you can let things go, let people go do their own thing, and not get caught up with what they're trying to push over on you. I guess that's it.
Sorry, I was chatting. I'm also following this on the live feed so I can interact and see if anybody's saying anything there. Um, but it's interesting too how we can allow other people's thoughts and perceptions maybe overtake ours too, rather than, because maybe we're not so strong-willed or so strong in our own feelings and feel we're capable or have that strength, and that's sometimes to our detriment too. I think that's another aspect we need to look at, is that we take on somebody else's perception too, rather than being in our own and realizing the difference. And I think that's another big thing that um, really can hamper us in our own growth. And I'm gonna now switch back to something that Catherine said earlier, like especially like when I read that book, The Five Love Languages also, and I actually have that book. I probably need to reread it because that does point out a lot of things that have, when I read it and kind of kept it in the forefront, helped me to interact with other people a little bit better and a little differently, because I was more in tune to how I looked at things and my perception, and then tried to put myself in their shoes and their perceptions and what they were telling me by their actions and their thoughts and their words, so that way I could respond appropriately, and therefore not get into this of I don't want or I do want or that, where it's more on that equilibrium, and both sides are getting what they need without walking away without feeling like they lost anything either. Any thoughts, Jason? We haven't heard from you yet.
Hey guys and gals. Hey Dan, are you calling me out now? I got all ready to be to get on this call, and then I sort of just kind of felt like not being on camera. Um, but I've been listening, and I was watching live for a little bit, and then I hopped on uh, um, just because I like being on and interacting. I was just listening to what you were saying there, and what everybody was saying, and I was just thinking about how I've never read that book, the Love Languages. I probably should do that to get a better perception, because just reading books like that, especially ones that other people have read, gives you a better understanding of how other people are now looking at things too, that maybe they didn't they didn't grow up knowing, but now they probably think, well, everybody's read that book, so they should, everybody should know that stuff. So, but I was just thinking about how There's two sides of that, of every conversation and every interaction, and just how, I guess, how important it is to each side, to each person in the conversation, that the other person is extending themselves to try to understand where you're coming from, where that other person is coming from, and that's kind of what I was keying in on. So, that's all I have to say for right now. Thanks for calling me out, Dan.
Sorry, I'm an equal opportunity person here. Trying to give everybody a chance to let them have a say. Um, Samantha got called away for a minute, so that's why I'm kind of doing what I'm trying to do. But I'm going to be honest, I was a slacker this week, and I did not get through a lot of this chapter, so I'm kind of myself kind of going off the fly. But um, I'm trying to get a little bit more out of the chapter. I wish that Samantha was back so that because I'm sure she's read it and listened to it and has more to add in. But it's just interesting how perception is such a dominant force in our lives and how we act and interact. And a lot of times, from perception, we make judgments too about things and stuff that are going on. Um, and it takes me back to a saying, like especially like when you're in the service industry, like for me, and I'm sure Catherine can attest to that, you kind of have to um, pull yourself back a little bit as a person, because people might say things or do things, or and not always, and it's not always appropriate, and certain things can escalate, and that should never happen, and I don't condone that. But I also understand we have to be willing to give each other a little bit of grace, because somebody may really be having a really bad day. Something may have happened. They might have gotten bad news, or the or if I'm giving an Uber ride, and they're going to be late to work because one, the car didn't start and something happened with the car, so now they had to wait to get the Uber and to get to work, and they're late, and this, and sometimes they can take a little bit of that out on you as a person, and rather than responding and going from that, well, I don't want that, I don't need that, I don't deserve that, and that perception of why are they coming at me, rather than, instead of going back and saying, oh, well, they could be having a bad day or something could have happened, and, cut that little. And I think too often we tend to all get into that, you know our perception, and we put these type of blinders on, that ours is the only way, ours is the only thing that matters. And sometimes, so much in this world, we let that guide us a little bit more than what we should, and we don't give enough out to in that love aspect, and to help bring that equilibrium back and maybe lighten their load a little bit too. And so that's something else, I think that we need to remember and keep in our hearts, to help, for lack of a better way, with Catherine saying, for all the crap that's going on out in the world, and all the pain that's out there in the world, and all the disconnect and all the decisiveness out there, you know I think, I really do, and on this one point, I really do agree with her. There needs to be more love and understanding out there. And I'm not saying anybody's right or wrong, because we all have our viewpoints of, you know what is right is wrong, and we can still be in that, in our thoughts and our perceptions and what we view, but we don't have to necessarily, be, like try and pound it in. There are other ways to share and bring about more cohesiveness.
I think it's important that we do share, though, Dan, because I think sometimes we also have a tendency, especially people, that come from an abusive background, that even if we're uncomfortable with the situation, or we see maybe how a person is interpreting something that could be interpreted in another way, we tend not to voice that because I don't know, we just come from this place of fear, um, of being rejected and all of those things. This is certainly something that I've had to work on, and actually using my voice. And it's not like you have to necessarily provoke somebody or disagree with them, but there are ways to gently slip in perhaps another way of seeing things. Um, Great example. So much of the stuff that I could give examples, I can't really share because it's things that were in a setting that were um, confidential. But things like, for instance, someone expressing suicidal thoughts, and then to someone, and then that person um, immediately jumps into, I have to save you mode, so I'm gonna call this hotline and that hotline and your counselor and this and that, and like, so then the person that was having those thoughts, rather than just sort of being able to express those thoughts to somebody, then suddenly they're defensive because they've been turned in, so to speak, and they saw that as like a total um disrespect, a total like, how could they do that to me? How could they break my trust? How could they do this or that? And to me, I saw it as, perhaps a little bit overboard, but at the same time, I could also understand that they didn't feel qualified themselves to help that person out of that situation. They didn't know if that person was going to take action. And so, out of love, they chose to take those actions. So there's such, and when I was able to um, offer that other explanation to that person, it softened. I wouldn't say that it took away the anger that she had, but it softened it. And then, just like yesterday, I am living with my uh um with other people now, where I lived alone for many years. So it's different to live with other people, and so different things come up. And uh there's a huge thing about breaking rules, and I never have been too big on rules myself. And like a rule was broken, and so immediately there's judgment that that person, well, they broke this rule, so then they have to face this punishment or whatever, and it's like, wait a minute, I want to know why they broke the rule? Because I think as human beings, there are so many different levels and circumstances and reasons why people make the choices and decisions that they do. And in the case yesterday, the I mean, the person broke the rule, and I thought it was excellent that she broke the rule. I couldn't think of a better time to break the rule. Like, it's I guess I just don't live in a very black and white world. But I think just as human beings, I think we're kind of programmed from the very beginning to to focus on the negatives rather than the positives, to at least notice the negatives more than the positives, or give them more weight than the positives or something. And just that little lesson in and of itself, because I can look back. I mean, I'm on my fourth marriage. I can look back at previous marriages and totally, especially my first one, and totally see where I was completely focused on the negative, or the second one actually completely focused on the negative. There was a lot of good in that marriage that I did not focus on. Why I chose to focus on the negative, I don't know. And, everything always works out like it's supposed to. So I don't have regrets or anything like that. But I definitely notice that that is what led to that divorce, is probably 95% both of us focusing on the negative.
And for the most part, I agree with you. I think I was showing one side and what I was saying one side of things too. But again, that's that. In the book, it talks about balance and stuff, and I think that's part of that balance of, I think we all want it collectively as in the world as that balance. But I agree with you somehow back from when, from the beginning of, well, based on this book, there's no beginning, but for me, and a lack of a better way of putting it into context, since the beginning of time that we know it or understand it or get it, somehow the negative has been what has been reinforced, and it's been, so to speak, perpetuated continually. And because we see it in the news, what's the one driving thing that out there that everybody is drawn to is the negative of things rather than the positive. And that in a lot of ways exasperates me, because it's like, why do we want to put more negative out there in our lives when we're experiencing negative on a lot of sides, and we don't like that negative and we want it to go away and we want the good and the positive? Why don't we, even as a world and as a collective and as people, work more towards that positive and try and keep that out there? Because when I see a good story about something that, somebody overcoming a hard obstacle, or somebody helping somebody, get over a hard obstacle or something, and you feel and sense and get that feeling, and you feel it, and people, um, really, at that moment, they're really drawn to it. So why can't it stay drawn? Why can't we stay drawn to that? And why does the negative come back in and seem to override and overtake everything so much? And it just still, for me, just is still one of the things that, you know, because I know I don't like the negative. I don't like feeling that way. And even myself, I catch myself going to that negative, and I can work myself up. I can have a simple little thought of one little incident, and then next thing I know, going from feeling good, and I'm totally wired up on the negative side, and go, "Arr," and then it continues on, and then it takes me a while to kind of get back to that, positive side. So it's it's interesting you bring that up about the negative and how it seems to be such a focal thing out there.
One of the things that this chapter really focuses on is self-love. Well, the whole book does, but this chapter, he's talking about there being a still point, which is a point of balance, a point of acceptance, a point of surrender, a point of no judgment, just kind of like that neutral zone. And he suggests, they suggest that the way to get there is Just keep proclaiming, I am self-love. I am self-love. Now, I don't know if that works or not. Like I'm just telling you that's what this chapter's focusing on. I mean, I do work on self-love daily, and you know, I do feel like I am able to access that still point. I'm not able to stay there, but I definitely can access that. And sometimes I can stay there for a while, you know, but it's not like I can just live there all the time. And I'm not sure that we're supposed to. Um, Again, we go back to me, even saying you need to go to that still point is sort of a contradiction of acceptance of what is. Because this life, at least in my experience, and he would say, well, it's because you believe it to be so, and I guess I have to agree with that. I don't know, but all I know is my experience has not been, you know, all sunshine and roses. That doesn't mean that it's wrong, because all of the clouds and stuff is what has caused tremendous growth and understanding and expansion. I don't know that we can get to the expansion he's talking about by being neutral about everything, because when you're neutral about everything, there comes a depersonalization with that that makes you, or at least has made me in the past, less compassionate than what I feel I should have been at times. You can have a very observer viewpoint and see everything as perfect. But when someone is living in their hell, you know, for you to just go to them and mouth off some kind of spiritual bullshit is not helpful. Like, you need to be compassionate to what that person is going through. So I don't think you can stay in the still point all the time, but I could totally be wrong.
It is so difficult to sort all of this stuff out. To really accept everything as it is, it can be difficult. I have started the idea of, I didn't start the idea, I'm just saying that there are blessings in what may appear to be a curse. Like, so many people can't understand how I get through life with terrible tremors in my hand, and they get so frustrated they want to stop and take it over and do it for me. I'm like, what am I going to do when you're not here? So how do we get to the point? Maybe that's not the right way to say it. To be accepting of what is, keeps you out of that place of denial. Because someone with a similar condition or situation would totally handle it differently, which only everyone has had different experiences and the way they respond to it. So how can you establish what is the way it, quote unquote, should be? How is it decided what should be? So many of the fairy tales and things that you get this idea that, oh, married life is supposed to be this way or that way, and you should do this and shouldn't do that. So we all have a sense of what's right and wrong, which could be said comes from Who established it? And it could be said it's from the Bible or the Quran or wherever. But there's no way to experience everything that everyone else has experienced to come to that conclusion. So the polarities and everything are all in question. What's right and wrong forever. Excuse me. Hard to say. I'm going to be quiet now.
Sorry, guys, I had to step away for a little bit, so I missed out on a lot of the conversation. But we are kind of at the top of the hour, so if we want to just kind of maybe share a final thought before we wrap up for today, then I'll go back and listen to the recording, and then next week I'll add some more thoughts on what we talked about today.
Well, I'll add one last thing to what Lori was saying, and I'm wondering, and I also think I think to what Catherine was saying, I'm wondering if all the experiences that we all are going through individually and helping, I'm gonna say maybe it's supposed to help us back to that self-love that this book is talking about, and therefore in doing that, maybe that brings about the, because it talks in the point, and I think this is what Catherine, the 0 point and that balance where things are, I guess, more in balance, and flow is easier within everybody and between everybody, and it therefore I think resonates and maybe goes further and has a deeper effect than we realize. Just throwing that out there. I don't know if that's just a like a postulating thought there.
I think you're right. It can drive you either way. If you think about what my body puts me through or what Lori's body puts her through, a lot of people's first inclination, and certainly mine at times, has been to hate my body, to absolutely hate it and despise it. And I mean, just saying those words, it doesn't even feel good. So that's not good for your body. So eventually, yes, I have come around, but I still work every day on self-love. And yes, I do acts of self-love every day. Yesterday, my act of self-love, as simple as it seems, was to get my hair brushed and my teeth brushed. That was it for the day. But it was something. Like I'm trying here. So I think I think you either get driven I think we all get driven into the hell, and then it's our choice whether we want to stay there or whether we want to come out of it. And then we try to find ways to come out of it, those of us that want to be out of it. So but exactly what you just said, like all of these things serve such a huge purpose. And it's I enjoy reading books like this because they do cause me to expand my thought process. And although I may not agree or disagree totally with any author of any book that I've ever read. There are certain things that feel right and certain things that don't feel right, and so those things that feel right, and the things that don't feel right, they all help me expand into hopefully a happier place. And so I just encourage anybody out there that's maybe listening or watching with us to pick up this book or some of the other books that we've mentioned. I mentioned The Five Love Languages and The Work um, by Byron Katie. The Five Love Languages, does anybody remember who that was written by? I can't remember, but it's a really
It was
good book.
Gary Chapman, I believe.
Yeah, that sounds about
Chapman.
right.
Yeah.
But it's really good for just getting you to understand that not everybody is you. Like, even though maybe cellularly we are all one, but we're all just different expressions, and we all perceive things so much differently and interpret things so much differently. And that's a great book to just make you more aware of those things, and it'll probably help you solve a lot of the angst that you might have about certain relationships when you can look back and say, oh, now I see what was going on there. So I hope everybody has a great week.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm going to jump out here again because what you just said really, jumped something out at me, and it made me think of that book, The Five Love Languages, but then the book, What You Say to Yourself When You Talk to Yourself. You know, maybe read both those books, one to understand how other people need to be interacted with, but also read, you know, you know what you say to whatever that title is about talking, what you say to yourself when you talk to yourself. The things that we say, we tend to drag ourselves down and focus on all the negative in ourselves rather than, like, going back to what this book's saying, go to self-love and lift yourself up. So then that way when you're putting out with to other people, you're putting out what they need to receive, and in turn they will usually return back what you need. And then if you're talking to yourself with self-love, to me that's all positive, that's feeling all positive, that's putting out as much positive as you can, and maybe that helps diffuse a lot of the negatives. So then that way, maybe get back to, as the book was talking about, maybe that 0 point in that balance. And maybe that's just hit my head and just kind of like, oh, that kind of makes sense. um, work from it that way. And but you're gonna get the torpedoes of all the negativity. So then how do we deal with that? How do you turn around and combat that? And hopefully I think doing the self-love helps reduce that. So that's hopefully my last thought.
Dan, I'll jump out. That sounds like a pretty good game plan there. I like that. Um, and then I was thinking exactly along the lines of where you just ended it. It's like, how do we keep, and you talk about how we're kind of drawn to the negative. And I think for some of us, at least, for me, it's not really that I'm not drawn to the negative as much as just trying to make sense of things, when negative things happen or when something happens, and also wanting this sense of kind of wanting to see justice done, wanting to see a good outcome. um, I do think it's kind of natural for us to um, be tuned in to what dangers might come around the corner. I think that's kind of a natural instinct in us, and just sort of protecting ourselves from danger. But then I was thinking, how, like what you ended there with, what I keyed on was that, how do we keep from getting caught up in that? How do we sort of end the thought process in a way that we can, not be caught up in it the rest of the day, but especially when, like what Lori was saying, it's like so hard to make sense of it all. We can't see it from everyone's perception and, understanding, but, so how do we walk away from something that we wanted to understand and we want to better, understand, but then how do we kind of end the thought process in a way, I don't know, like saying, well, it's not meant for us to understand everything, but maybe for some of us, we, give part of it to God or to the universe to sort out for us, and so that we can move on and focus on, that self-love or getting back to center. Um, but wow, I think that's a really cool kind of a game plan you were just mentioned there with, you know, understanding the five love languages and also listening to ourselves and kind of bringing that all together and then using that to uh, really sort of affect other people's lives and be there for other people in our daily interactions in a positive way. That kind of gives me hope on a kind of a cool new game plan of how to step into one's power and, not only take responsibility but also, have a way of giving back, as well. So that's cool. Thanks for that, Dan, and thank you all for all of your wonderful insights. I'll have to go back and listen to this. Thanks again, and have a great weekend, everybody.
I want to
Hey,
say
and I'm just gonna pop
oh,
out
go
real
ahead.
quick, and I know I came on and I got all ready for this, and I didn't feel like getting out on camera, but you guys put me in a much better mood. It always does whenever I get on here, and you know, it's just great to be with you all. Thanks so much.
Awesome, Jason.
Yay, mission accomplished.
Right? Yeah, I always feel better after I've been on here with you guys. And, because I have some mornings where I wake up on Saturday and I'm like, oh, I just really want to go back to sleep, And then I'll get up and I'll stew around for a little bit and be like, oh, I just don't know if I'm in the mood to be social today. And yet then every time I get on here with you, I'm so thankful that I did. And there for, I don't know, a couple of years back or a year or so ago, I was kind of going through a down time where I just was just kind of blah. But I kept getting on here and I was reading, I was reading recently about that. I don't know. It'll come to me at some point. I'll have to share it. But it was basically, saying just do the work. It was actually a book that I started listening to about creative publishing or something like that. It was like artists and publishing, and I don't know, something along that lines. And it was, I think, by Seth Godin, The Practice, maybe, or he came out with a newer book. But anyway, so he was talking about just doing the work, if you will, for the sake of, you find your purpose after you do the work. You determine who you are because of the work that you do, not the other way around. You don't find your purpose first and then do your work. You decide who you want to be and you do the work and then you become the person. So anyway, it brought me to thinking about our Saturday morning mastermind and the fact that we just keep getting on here. We maybe we haven't figured out exactly everything that we want to do with it, but we know we want to keep doing it because it benefits us, all of us. And for those of you who are watching this, if you got some value out of it, then click like, share it. Join us next week if you'd like to. And if you're watching this as a recording on YouTube, find us by going to mindsetmasterycollective.com. That will help you find the link to get into our Facebook group. And we're doing a little updating on our website, so disregard any dishevelment over there, but we're working on it. And I think that's pretty much it. This is a great chat today. It always makes me feel better, and I love hearing from you guys and knowing that we're all learning something other than just what the book says, because I feel like we gain greater insights when we share our own experiences and our own thought processes. So with that, guys, have a great, awesome, amazing week, and we'll see you next time on the Saturday Morning Mastermind. Bye for now.